Hello, everyone, and welcome back in for another episode of For the Good of the Game. I'm your host, John Davis, JD, and I am super pumped to have two very special guests today that I think exemplify the theme for season 2, which is relationships. Our first guest is Hall of Famer Bruce Smith, out of Booker T. Washington High School in Norfolk, Virginia, all the way to Canton and the 2009 class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. Known as the Sack Man through a stellar career at Virginia Tech, Bruce is one of only two Hokies, along with Michael Vick, to be taken with the first overall pick in the NFL draft, in Bruce's case, in 1985 by the Buffalo Bills. Of his 19-year NFL career, 15 of them were spent in Buffalo. He earned every conceivable individual accolade, including the one he's best known for, the NFL's all-time sack leader with 200 career sacks. For the 10 of the 15 years he was in Buffalo, he built a strong bond with our other guest today, the man who presented and introduced Bruce at Canton, Coach Ted Cottrell. Coach Catrell was a two-time All-American in football and three-time All-American in track and field at Delaware Valley College, now university. He was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons in 1969 and spent 2 years in the NFL, followed by a year with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the CFL. Coach Catrell began his coaching career at Rutgers University and has enjoyed a stellar career spanning over 4 decades, including 20-plus years coaching in the NFL. In 2012, Coach Catrell was elected to the inaugural class of the Middle Atlantic Conference Hall of Fame for his accomplishments while playing at Delaware Valley. So it is with very great pleasure that I welcome you two gentlemen to the show today, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
It's quite an honor to be here. Thank you very much for having us.
Well, I really appreciate it. Bruce, I'm going to start off in the context of relationships, which is so important to me in terms of knowing, having spoken to Coach Catrell numerous times about you guys. Relationships are obviously important to you. You know, in your Hall of Fame speech, you mentioned your high school football and basketball coaches, Coach Catrell and Coach Levy, your teammates, Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, Darryl Talley, among others. So what do you think it is about football as a sport that enables great relationships and makes them so special?
Well, relationships are essential. Going down this journey, you need to have other stable foundations that are in your life to help guide you and navigate you through this difficult path of success. And I was fortunate enough to have multiple of them while I was on this journey of actually when I was a kid, obviously my parents. Then it was my high school football and basketball coach. Then it was my coach, Bill Dooley at Virginia Tech. And then when I was fortunate enough to get drafted, Marv Levy thought it was essential and very necessary to bring someone in that I could identify with. He could understand me. We could talk about any and everything, and I wouldn't have to hide anything from him because of the way I felt, or I might have felt ashamed of thinking this way or feeling this way or what have you. And that person was Ted Cottrell. And there's just so many facets of this relationship, both from a personal standpoint and from a professional standpoint. The professional standpoint, I really think speaks for itself. He's the one that taught me how to break down an offensive lineman. The use of the hands, as well as Ben Williams, the late great Ben Williams, who was with the Buffalo Bills. But when Ted Cottrell arrived, I was able to really sit down and understand that those nuggets that he was passing on to me, and it was up to me at that point in time to implement all of that information that was being passed to me. And it was time for me to put the time in, put the work in, which was film study, film study, film study. I already had the athleticism, the athletic ability, the speed, the quickness. Rusty Jones, another relationship who helped me with my strength and conditioning and my eating habits and so forth. But it was Ted that was that integral part that gave me the skill set to merge all the other pieces together to go out and become the player that I was able to become.
That's awesome. I think that when you have those types of relationships and you get the dynamism between teammates and coaches, and I've interviewed other guys that have spoken of that same dynamic, the only thing that's left, and we're going to talk about this in just a second, or I'm going to ask a question about it, is really developing and playing in that culture of winning that so often is implemented by, the great management and then obviously the head coach. Ted, in Bruce's Hall of Fame speech, he thanked you for, quote, making me a well-rounded player and a student of the game. And he just commented on that. So what did you see in Bruce, early on, particularly the 86 to 89, when you came in as defensive line coach, that let you know? I mean, obviously he had a huge reputation, #1 overall pick. He talked about to lead his speech off, he was under the pressure of being the #1 overall pick. But what did you see that really let you know early on that he was going to be a special player?
Well, when I got there in 86, season of 1986, and when I began working with Bruce on a daily basis, and I don't know if he remembers that. I don't know if I told him, but I was thinking, I said, this guy is something special. God has blessed him with some unbelievable talents for a guy that big. And he was like over 300 pounds at that time. And he was still running, beating guys in the 40-yard dash. I don't know if Bruce can remember, my first mini camp there, they had a bet. And they running a 40-yard dash. They don't want guys running a 40-yard dash during summer camp. And Bruce wasn't going to do a lot of stuff in summer camp, training camp. Anyway, they had this money was on the table, and he beat this, I think it was a linebacker, and he beat him by about 5 yards. And I was going in awe, because this linebacker is supposed to be real fast. And Bruce just blew him away. I went, my God, this is unbelievable, guy this big to run this fast. And I said, oh my goodness, there is a special athlete that God has created here. He didn't do that too often, but this one was special. And that's when that, amongst other things, caught my attention. And then working with him Bruce was one that he would sit back and eye you up to see if you knew what the heck you were talking about before he passed any judgment on you. He wasn't just going to welcome you with open arms, because I don't know if he can remember, but there's a couple of guys there he didn't want to deal with. But for some reason, and I think our Heavenly Father put us together, because it was like almost instant camaraderie, relationship, whatever. He and I started getting along, and so that continued to develop into a situation where he and I, we bonded. I mean, we were more than just player coach. He became like a son to me, and he is a son to me. And he knows he can call me at any time, and we'll talk. I have his number on speed dial. Now, let me just tell you, he talked about the film study. This is an area where he was really, really good at it. And so he started, then he became a student of this film study. And what he would do, he couldn't sleep the night after the game. He'd be in there Monday morning, bright and early, trying to get the tape. Where's Bruce? We haven't looked at it yet. He'll call me up, and so he would get the day before the Sunday game. He's on it. He's going to now. And this is like 8 a.m. in the morning, Monday morning. So then he would get also the tape on the upcoming opponent. begin studying it. So he'd get that, he'll have it all day Monday. Tuesday was the day off, all day Tuesday. He's looking at all this tape and looking, studying, taking his notes. He had this thing down. So when Wednesday come, now we're gonna have the meeting with the rest of the D line. And I would hear this in the background. We break off into our little D line section. And after a while, I got my lesson plan together. I'm going through stuff. And I hear this, come on, Ted. come on, Ted. We got to get out of here. I said, well, wait a minute, man. These other guys haven't studied like you have. And he would have it down. I mean, he would have it down Wednesday. When we came in there, he had a good idea of what he was going to do and how he had to defeat his upcoming opponent, what their strengths and weaknesses were. So then he would have a great head start getting in his game preparation, getting ready to play on Sunday. So he would, that was always so funny. I would hear this, come on, Ted. I said, Bruce, these guys have not come in here on Monday morning, got the tape and start studying like you have. But that helped him become the player he was.
Let me go back to something you just said. I apologize for interrupting there at the end, but you hit on a note that I think as you talked about the bond that you guys built and that it gets at something that I've talked to a number of different guys about. And Bruce, when Coach is describing that, and you can tell in just his mannerisms as he describes it, those are pleasant memories. And obviously with that bond that develops, what do you think it was about Ted Cottrell specifically as a coach that was so instrumental in you guys developing that trust and respect early on in your career?
Well, I can see the joy on his face and the in his voice. I can see the pleasure of him knowing that what he passed on to me, I took it and I put the work in to become the player that I am today. That's what this maturation process is all about. That's what this journey is about. If you pass on valuable information to someone and they do nothing with it, shame on them. Mm-hmm. You've done your job. But if you pass on those nuggets and that valuable information, that a person receives it and applies it to his day-to-day routine, which is his job, that's when you know something special is in the making. And once again, when I put all those pieces together, strength and conditioning, the film study, along with my God-given athletic ability and the work ethic, when you put all those pieces together, that's when it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be great, but it increases your chance of being great. And that's what happened here. And I'm, again, very thankful, and God didn't make mistakes. That's why he placed Ted Cottrell along with my teammates and Marv Levy in my life.
Amen. I tell you, it's and it was not only a pleasure watching all that come to fruition on the field on Sundays, but it does my heart good. And it's something young players need to hear because a lot of times I think that guys at a young age, when maturity hasn't kicked in yet, who are graced with the type of athletic ability that you had, not that there's many of them, but the guys that are head and shoulders above their peers, oftentimes tend to develop a little bit of a superiority complex. I'm all that in a bag of chips. I don't need, coach telling me what to do and all that. And unfortunately, there are many of them who fall to the sidelines that could have been great players at some level and don't ever get a chance.
Now, if I could stop you 1 second. Yeah. Now, make no mistake about it. I was immature when Ted got there. I'll be the first to admit that. I was green. I was immature. I was making some poor decisions, and Ted would see these things taking place, and instead of raising his voice and being like some coaches are, he would talk to me with a calm demeanor, and I was able to receive that. The coaches that I had before would raise their voice, and it would immediately turn me off and put up this barrier in between us. And there was this kind of tug of war going on, and so forth. But when Ted would rebuke me and try and get me to see things that I was doing wrong, I was able to receive it because of his demeanor and the way he spoke and he talked. He always had that calm voice and that soothing voice that could actually touch you in a way that you want to do better, you want to receive it, and make you a better person. And you have to be a better person first, and then the professional part will follow.
Yeah, my kids always told me later on, because I was blessed to enjoy with all four of them a dual relationship, you know, parent, child, and coach and player. And all of them at one time or another have come back to me and said the worst thing I could have done, whether it was certainly while I was coaching them, was to come to them and tell them how disappointed I was in them. They didn't want to let me down. Let me flip the script on something Bruce said, Ted. When you talk about you know, the things that you did and the mannerisms, you know, obviously that develops that respect that we talked about. You talked about how awesome Bruce was in terms of his game preparation and his film study, becoming a student of the game. How do you feel like his maturation and excelling at that particular facet made you be a better coach? So you know, this guy who is gifted as an athlete is raising his game. Now I got to come at him and raise my game. How did that work for you?
Oh, well, like we said, it's accountability. And so I would have to study the tape, because I know Bruce is studying. You know, so when the things that I told him, that they better be truthful, because I better not come with some BS, because he's like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't see that. Come on. Oh, that ain't working. So he would already be up on that. So it's just being truthful with him. And it's just, I could talk about Bruce for 3 hours plus, you know, because the things that he has and all throughout his career. But the one thing I want to say is that he was highly, and he still is now, highly self-motivated. He knew he was good. He knew he was good, but he wanted to be better. Because I can remember having a speech with him and in early on in the career. And at one point, there was some big contention there. I don't know if Bruce remembered in his first year. And he said, I want out of here. And I went, oh my God. So he came to my office and he says, I want them to get rid of me. I'm not going to stay here. And I went, oh my God. And I said, so he came to the office and we sat and talked. And I said, Bruce, you can not only be all ASC, all pro. I know you could be in the Hall of Fame. I know you can be in the Hall of Fame. Don't listen to these people. And I gave it my all. So he walked out the office. I said, I don't know what's going to happen now. If he turned to his right, I know that speech didn't mean anything to him. He came out, he looked right, looked left, and he went left. He went back downstairs. And I went, so he stayed, and thank God he stayed, because what a dynamic career he had. The availability, the accountability, the self-motivation. He was a great example for the young guys, and that's one of the main reasons Buffalo was so good back there in that day. The young players coming in, he's in the training room early during training camp. Well, no, he didn't practice a lot on the field. He hated on the field, but they would go into the weight room, in the weight room, and they see this guy on the stairmaster for like an hour with his earphones in, pumping, sweat just pouring off of him. Oh, so they look at that, go. They come in there, do their lifting, go out. Bruce is still in there. This is guy now. He's 2 or 3 years all pro. They're seeing this. Great example. I'll go to the young guys. Hey, you wanna try to be all pro? Try to emulate what that you see right there. Try to emulate what you're seeing right there. So that was a great example for the guys up in Buffalo to see that. And then when game time came, are you kidding me? And the bigger the game, the better he played. The more he got pissed off, the better he played. So guys were stupid when they pissed him off, got him mad. They got him mad. He played better. I said, "Are you idiots?" All you got to do is say, "Hey, Bruce, hey, how's Carmen? How's your mom? How's your dad? How's Austin?" And all that stuff back in the early days. And he may have taken it easy, but he still don't beat their butt anyway. But not as bad. Not as badly. Now, when they got him mad, oh my goodness. I just sat back. I said, "You stupid. How stupid can you be? You just unleashed the fire in this dude. And now you got hell on your hands." But again, it's coming out, his availability in playing to the best of what our Heavenly Father had given him. And that was a great example, for the younger guys to see this.
Absolutely.
Be close to him. Just try to stay close to what you're seeing this man do every day, getting ready, his preparation. He's out on the field. And I will never, I want to say this to him too. I'll never forget, it was 1999. And this one really made me feel good. We were going against the Colts. They were in our division. And I'm not a big stat guy, right? And so we're out on the field right in our pregame warm-up, and he tells me to leave the huddle. I get all the defense, get out, come on, I'm gonna give him my little speech, right? He tells me, hey, get out of here. I got this. And so I step to the side, but I'm listening in a little bit, and he says, look, we got a chance to be number one defense in the league. We got a chance to be number one defense in the league, and we're gonna do it for this man. I don't know if he remembers it. He said he's gonna do it for this guy. We owe it to him. I didn't even know we could be the number one defense. All I know, we go on the playoffs. We got Peyton Manning. They were going for the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Well, they proceeded to kick his butt. And as a matter of fact, they took Peyton out in the first half because he and one of our other defensive ends, I think it was Marcellus Wiley, one hit him high, one hit him low, legal hit, and they almost broke him in half. Almost broke him in half. They took Peyton out of the game. Of course, we went on to win the game handily, and we finished the number one defense in the league. And I'll never forget that moment. I don't know if Bruce remembers it. He told
Ironically enough, Ted, I just sent that picture to Marcellus.
John.
That is crazy.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah,
that is a simultaneous hit.
Yeah, somebody sent it to me. So
hey, Bruce, send that to me.
Yeah,
but that was unbelievable, and we went on to be number one defense in the league. And that was not that really is a special moment for me that he would take that time, and Bruce was always aware of records and things that might be meaningful to people on a team, because he's one of the guys selecting. He was a team captain, selecting the game balls after the game. Who's gonna get? And they would it was unbelievable how they would know if a guy needed so many catches or tackles or whatever. yards, and they'd achieved it, they would reward those guys with a game ball. And that was just unbelievable that these guys were so into it, that they took care of each other. The head coach didn't give out the game balls. It was Bruce, I think Thurman, and Jim, and maybe Andre. They would get together in the locker room and decide who's going to get the game balls. The players did. So it was the players, those guys. What Bruce, he was the lead dude now. Everybody followed him. They would decide who's got the game ball. And I got to put Darryl in there too. So I want Darryl to get mad at me, Pally.
That's a great segue into you. You led me right into my next question, because it's on the great Bills teams that went to 4 straight Super Bowls, a feat that, in my humble opinion, will never be duplicated. Bruce, what type of team culture, and Ted was getting at that a little bit there for the individual leaders on the team, but what type of team culture existed that kind of propelled you guys forward in the face of those adverse results? I mean, it's, obviously well documented. There's, the teams that made it to those 4 Super Bowls were certainly laden with superstars and guys like yourself who were gifted athletically. But there's another piece that's intangible that goes into being able to push forward through that type of adversity, with getting there 4 times, obviously, and not coming out on top. Well, talk to us a little bit about the culture that existed back then from your perspective.
Well, that culture was established by Bill Polian and Marv Levy. They assembled guys that were driven from within. Did we have to be taught and allow this process to unfold along with this maturation? Yes, but if you start off with the right ingredients, it makes your job a little bit easier along the way while you're making whatever it is your meal. So I think that Bill Polian and Marv Levy and the scouting department were very conscious about the players that they brought in. And if you just look at the list of them, I think during my era, there were seven Hall of Famers, and probably will be a few more by the time that we're done. But that's the most important thing. That culture was brought in one piece at a time. Andre Reed and I came in '85, the same year. Darryl Talley was already there. Bill Polian was already there. Marv Levy came in '86. Then there was Cornelius Bennett, along with Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Steve Tasker,
Wow.
Ken Hall, and the list just continues to go on. The acquisition of James Lofton. So this was built one block at a time. And when we're able to get all of those pieces together, that's where your culture was. And then you go back and you look at someone like Frank Wright, who played a pivotal part in the relationship with Jim Kelly and his understanding of offensive plays and defensive schemes and players being in the right place for this execution to take place of any given play. Marv and Bill knew we had something special. And it was all because of the culture that was established, along with playing in a blue collar town, because for the majority of us, we came from blue collar backgrounds with our parents. So we knew the difficulties, the sacrifices that were made, and man, we were just hungry. We loved one another. We enjoyed the family atmosphere, and they even tried to implement coaches that would be able to identify and be as one with us. And I got to tell you, we had a great coach, Elijah Pitts, Ted Cottrell and Walt Corey and so many others, Dick. So my hat goes off to the coaching staff and Bill Poley and for putting that nucleus together.
Folks, let's talk about that. And I've got one other question for the two of you, and then I'll wrap this up. But for you, Ted, you had an opportunity, and you and I have talked at length about your early career, both as a player and a coach. But some of the great head coaches you've worked for in your career, Marv Levy, Herm Edwards, Mike Tice, Norv Turner. When you were known as an innovator of the 3-4, obviously you guys enjoyed tremendous success on the defensive side of the ball in Buffalo and some of the other places where you were. How did those relationships help you learn and grow as a coach? And, as far as what did you try to take, or in some cases, not that you have to call anybody out, that you chose not to do, that you may have learned from someone to kind of, push you through such a long, successful career?
Well, John, like I mentioned to you earlier in one of our conversations, I spent a lot of time listening to other coaches along the way, because the way I started off at Rutgers, and I had Coach Frank Burns.
Right.
And like my dad would always say, if you sit and listen, you can learn something every day from someone. All right. So I would listen to a lot of guys, and I spent a lot of time going to clinics, because I knew the game, but to teach it. A coach, you're a teacher, and you're trying to get what related to the players, so they can be the best that they can be. They can do what you want. So I would go to all these clinics and just sit there. I wouldn't miss any of the seminars. And like I told you before, I got Bill Walsh's notes. He went 2 hours, and I got just about every word he said. I was just writing down. And I still go back and look at those notes every now and then. All right. And so I was kept trying to get as much knowledge and study as much as I can. It's like the more experience that you have, because when a situation arises, you can have some type of answer in a hurry.
Sure.
Answer in a hurry. Like the players, when they're playing the game, they want, it's something that's happening out there on the field. They want an answer right now. How can we stop it? What can we do? What can we do? They're doing this to us. So you got to have an answer ready for them immediately, not at halftime, not after the game, not the next day. They want it right now. And so I try to get as much knowledge as I can in this big head of mine with all my study. And with a guy like me, I still have notes. Like I said before, I'll go back and I showed these to, I just finished a stint with the XFL, the Houston Roughnecks. I was showing one of my younger coaches some of the notes I had taken. And if there are some stunts specifically designed for Bruce, I said, Bruce's stunts. The guys go, you went and got, I said, yes, these are things that I had for Bruce that I know he could do, that no one else could do. It said stunts for Bruce. It wasn't stunts for Phil, because Phil Hansen couldn't do it. It wasn't stunts for Leon Seals, that they couldn't do it. There was stunts for Bruce. And so that's one of the things with the experience, and just like you said, getting as much knowledge as you can, John, that I took upon myself, because I wanted Bruce to be the best he could be. If he came to me and said, Ted, well, they're doing this to me, what can we do? I can say, well, be a better athlete. He can be a better athlete. How many better athletes can they make than Bruce? He wants an answer. He wants an answer now. What can we go to? What type of scheme that we can go to? I see that he's getting all these double teams. And guys, they're turning their protection to him. And I said, okay, well, they're doing that. Let's try to do this. And so it took it upon myself to gain as much knowledge as I can to help him be the best player that he could be. It was him, a specific As a matter of fact, it was on a yellow tablet with red ink. Right. I had it up a couple months ago, and the guy go, "You get all these stunts from Bruce?" I said, "Yes, I do." It was when I talked to my defensive line coach. I said, "These are the things that you need to do to work on to help your players that you are coaching be better. See what they can do. Don't ask them to do something that they can't do. Don't ask them to do something that they can't do just because you saw it. But if they can do this, try to work and get them the best that they can be."
You know, it's interesting. I've had the privilege of interviewing a number of other guys that were talked about by their coaches in the same manner that you speak of Bruce, with, you know, a little bit of awe thrown in with a whole lot of respect, and obviously with the relationship that you guys have, it makes those descriptions that much more special. But I think that, as you know, we were kind of alluding to it initially before we came on camera, that I think the game is changing today in a couple of ways that are kind of nuanced. So my last question to each of you, Ted, from a coaching standpoint, and Bruce, I'll let you go first from a player standpoint. There are a multitude of dynamics changing right now at the college level that will eventually, I think, affect the NFL game from an athlete standpoint. You've got the name, image, and likeness issues coming up where athletes can get paid for their NIL. You've got the transfer portal. You've got a whole different dynamic going on with COVID in terms of face-to-face recruiting that really, you know, couldn't necessarily. In fact, Bruce, you talked about that when Coach came to your house, you know, that kind of swung you to go to Virginia Tech when you were being recruited by all the schools. You know, so many times those personal relationships are what swings it. So when you look at the game today and the changes that are occurring specifically with the athletes, do you think necessarily that it's going to, you think the athletes are going to have to adapt to the game, or do you think the game may change a little bit with those personalities and the character issues and things that we're seeing that are going to be molded by some of these changes?
It's probably going to be a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
From a player's perspective, as well as from a coaching perspective, which will also affect the game. You know, these young players that are in this era of football have so many challenges and distractions and things that can throw them off course from achieving the ultimate goal. But it still boils down to that one simple question. Are you willing to put in the work to be great?
Mm-hmm.
And that's I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have someone to hold your hand your whole career. You're going to have folks that will pass on information to you and nuggets. Sometimes you will like the way it's said. Sometimes you won't like the way it's said. But for me, I found that I would try and take something from every individual that I came in contact with, whether I like what they said or I didn't. If I know I had a coach back in my second year that we got into it a couple of times, and that was that story that Ted was telling you about, and I wanted out. But to be quite honest with you, some of the things that he said to me, they resonated within me, and it made me angry, but it made me want to achieve greatness. And he was putting nuggets in my head in a way that I didn't receive it well, but nonetheless, it was effective.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was able to he used one approach, Ted used another, which resonated even more and inspired me even more. So for me, I try and take information from every single meeting, personality, every person that I come in contact with, and I may not think about it until a few minutes later, or hours later, or the next day, but when I'm just brainstorming, and I'll say to myself, well, what did he really mean by that? Or I know I didn't like the way he said it, but is it true? And once you take a look in the mirror and you figure all these things out, it helps you to evolve as a person and as a professional athlete.
Well, a lot of guys never develop the emotional IQ, the emotional awareness, self-awareness to be able to make that leap. I agree with you 100%. I always say, all feedback is good feedback. You have to kind of sift through it and decide what is useful and relevant and what you're going to throw away.
Right.
Ted, what about you from a coaching standpoint? Do you think that the athletes you're seeing now, I mean, and you've seen it recently, at the XFL level, the kind of that jump between college and the NFL, you think it's going to present some challenges for the future?
Yeah, but as things, a lot of things they change, but a lot of things stay the same.
Very true.
Right? They stay the same. Now, Bruce mentioned one keyword, and I had written it down because I wanted to talk about this just very briefly before we end. And I put like 4 stars beside it. And it's more relative today. We're dealing with the COVID and everything else, the virtual learning, you can't, it's hard to get one-on-one a lot with the player. And so just like you're talking about, John, just the recruiting and the coaching. So but it brings into mind that there's one key thing, and Bruce has mentioned it in passing, and I said I just want to make sure we get this down before we end. It was the self-motivation. You got nowadays with the way things are, you got to be really self-motivated, because to do the things that we talk about, go out there and do them, because the coach can't be there.
Sure.
He can't be there, so he can't be there and jumping up and down on you and tell you to do this and study this. We're going through this. It's virtual. I can't even get close to you sometimes. And I think that's what the NFL is experiencing. And we can't even have practice. And all the other sports, we can't even have practice. But you have to take it upon yourself to go out and do the things that you're supposed to do. To study the film, keep your body in shape, get your rest, get your nutrition on your own. We're not going to have these guys there all the time just spoon feeding you. So it's becoming more relative today that when you're going to recruit these athletes like in college, you got to go get those guys that are highly self-motivated, because you're not going to be there anyway. And that was one of the things that Bruce had mentioned about a lot of his teammates, but the Buffalo Bills, those guys were highly self-motivated. You didn't have to come out there and jump up and down and play well. Well, come Sunday, boy, they hold on to your hat, because they're coming to play. They're coming to do what they're supposed to do without a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. So today's athlete, and I just finished with the Spring League, the XFL, the AAF, and I keep telling them, you guys, you can be as good as you want to be. It's on you. I can't be there. Lord knows can't be there, not like we used to be. We only got, in the college, you only got so many hours before the COVID that you could practice.
Sure.
A lot of stuff you got to do on your own. Now, but the COVID is even less. We're going through. So you have to get this thing inside of you. You have to have this. You have to have this want to do the things that you're supposed to. And so today's athlete, like I said, more things change as well. They stay the same. You need that one aspect. And that is you get out and do what you're supposed to do without me yelling and screaming, your parents yelling and screaming. If you want to be good at this, you take it upon yourself. You don't want to be good at it, don't try it. Because this damn game is too hard to play.
Lord,
Amen.
yeah. Hey, John, one
Yes, sir.
thing, just to expand on what Ted said. When you talk about self-motivated, when it's training camp, do the bulk of your players or your stars come to camp in shape, or do they come to camp to get in shape?
Interesting.
See, that tells you whether they're self-motivated or they want to have a 2 or 3 step lead over their opponents when they get to camp. See, and that was my mindset once I put all these pieces together. I went to camp in shape, so I didn't have to worry about trying to run extra laps and lose weight and do so forth and so on. I was already in shape, so I was 2 or 3 weeks ahead of everybody else. So I could concentrate on my technique. I could concentrate on making sure I'm just maintaining and keeping my strength up when other guys are having to lose weight, having to run extra laps, having to do these other things that they should have been doing during the off season.
Amen.
It's a lot easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. It's not good for your body to put on 20 pounds during the off season and have to take it off 4 or 5 months later. That's not good for your body. So these are the things that were a part of the maturation process for me. And that was one of the things that Ted and Marv and Bill Polian and all of the rest of them never had to worry about. Once that light switch went off, that's what they got.
That's an awesome statement, because it's I've learned training with a couple of different guys, because I've always been one to be motivated by external things. Not that I wasn't self-motivated, but like, a good hype song or a good motivational speech always got me pumped up. But then I learned, what happens when the external stimuli go away? You've got to have that why. And Nietzsche said, if a person's why is strong enough, they can survive almost anyhow. And I think that that's what you're talking about. It's when you have that purpose and that passion combined, it gives you that self-motivation Ted talked about that, propels you to the next level. And then on top of, as you started off talking about, Bruce, with your God-given talent and everything else and great coaching along the way, to reach ultimately the pinnacle, as you said, in your Hall of Fame speech, pro football immortality. And that's, it's a real thing to be able to not only pass along, but appreciate, not for any accolade reasons, but just to say, I had a job well done internally. And a lot of people can't say that. So,
and money can't be the motivating factor.
No, I agree.
Yeah. You take care of all the other elements, the money will come.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Well, listen, gentlemen, and out of respect for both your times, I appreciate you guys rebooting when we had a little issue a while ago. But Bruce, it was, albeit a very short first meeting, very good to get to see you again. Ted, as always, super to catch up with you both before and during this. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for both you guys. This was perfect for what I'm wanting to achieve this year, talking about relationships, and you guys really do exemplify that. And thank you so much from me to you for taking the time to do this.
Thanks, John.
Not a problem, John. And Ted, you look good too, man, by the way. I hadn't seen you in a while. You look good. Yeah.
Yeah, you like my son.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce, you check out the Buffalo stuff behind me now.
I see it.
My office there now.
Yeah, nice setup. So
that's awesome.
Okay.
Thanks so much, John.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
It was absolutely my pleasure.
Take care.